All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. However you consume Talking Buffalo, this has been quite a day. I'll get to that here in just a second. But I do want to shout out the sponsors for today's show. Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, just on the way from Highmark Stadium, as well as Imperial Pizza, 2 locations, Main Street near Canisius College, and in the heart of South Buffalo, right at 1035 Abbott Road. I've said that 3 times now today. Let me set the table here. I am joined, as I am every week, however, different day today, by my very good, accommodating buddy from SB Nation, Matt Warren, who was out at practice today at St. John's Fisher, today being Monday. We had some issues, buddy, to say the least. Long story short, for everybody watching or listening to the show today, this is the 3rd time and 2nd platform that I've used to try to hook up with Matt to do the show. You were in front of the field a couple hours ago. Now you are back at home in Batavia in your home studio. What's going on, buddy? Thank you so much, man. And I truly mean that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No worries about that. So, no, everything's good. Training camp was real nice today. The weather was better today. It was nice.
Last week, you and I were there on Monday, and it was sweltering hot. That was the day where I ended up, it was so hot that I couldn't record there because I was just sweating, dripping all over the place. And I went to Pittsburgh Dairy to record something. You showed up, did not know you were going to be there. Quite a surprise, pleasant surprise. You did a little bit with me. And of course, the way the week's been going with me, it didn't record correctly. I guess if you do a show long enough and if you do enough episodes, you're bound to have some weird stuff happen to you. And that has certainly been the case with me of late. I'm back on StreamYard after a couple months of EV Mux. That was an issue today. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. If you're listening, if you're watching enough for this, I just appreciate you guys, and I'm glad that you are aboard. One of the reasons why I wanted to push Matt Warren up a day as opposed to when we usually do it is because, like I said, Matt was there as a member of the media covering the practice. And this was a practice that was closed to the public. It was media only, as well as like the friends and family, a couple of sponsors, stuff like that. So the stands were very minimal. So not a lot of people got firsthand observations from practice. Matt did, and we're going to talk about a good chunk of them. Some good, maybe a couple not so good. We'll talk about the injuries a little bit. James Cook, of course, is a big story. But before that, and now for a 3rd time, and hopefully the 3rd time will be the charm. Because I'm starting to think that maybe the podcasting gods don't want me to ask you this question, because both times previously I've asked you this is when we've lost our connection. But I would like for you to take, for fans, Bills fans who might be interested in knowing, or maybe other podcasters who don't cover the team, credentialed. Matt Warren did get a credential today. He also had one for last Monday. Kind of take people a little bit behind the ropes. What's it like to go to St. John's Fisher, not as a fan, but as a working member of the media to cover a day like today?
Sure. Well, I mean, the biggest thing for me is like when I took my kids to the scrimmage on Friday night, I was, head to toe in my Bills stuff. But when I go to training camp as a member of the media, I don't wear my Bill stuff. I'm not, cheering on the sidelines, supporting the team, things like that. It's just a different vibe when, you're there as a member of the media as far as that goes. But the best thing I will say is that I don't have to ride the bus from the high school. That's like the coolest thing, is that I can park on campus and not have to, ride the bus. So that's always fun. So then you go in. So I got there around somewhere between 8:45 and 9 this morning. Went to Bobby Babish's press availability. Went over on the field. There are some restrictions for the media during training camp on when they can film, what they can film, things like that. And so I just try to avoid filming at all, just to avoid that, because the guys that do it on a day in, day out basis, they're really familiar with the rules, and I just don't want to irritate somebody while I'm there.
Sure.
We've talked about that a little bit as far as like mini camp stuff goes, and like OTAs with what beat reporters are allowed to write. But in training camp, because there's so many people there, they don't really have as much restrictions on, like, you can't say that they're working with the first team and everything like that, because like 1,000 people are seeing it, so it doesn't really matter anymore. So yeah, after practice, there was more media availability. It was DeMar Hamlin and Christian Benford came over and chatted with some of the members of the media under the tent. There are opportunities as well after practice for you to grab guys as they're coming off the field if you have specific questions, or you're asking follow-ups to things that you've already asked previously. So there's some time, depending on, like, if they have their family there that day, they're not going to want to talk to you, or if they're signing stuff for little kids, they're not going to want to talk to you, and things like that. So it's a nice process. I think the Bills do a nice job with it. And then after that, there's media lunch at 12:15, and then you saw people kind of scatter. Some went back to write their stuff in their hotel room or in their dorm room. If you're a fully credentialed member of the media, you can stay right on campus. And so some of them went back to their dorm rooms. So you saw, like, I don't know, you see like some of these other guys doing their vidcasts from their dorm room at St. John Fisher. So and then there was a bunch more folks that went out to the field where I was for a little bit to record hits with like the field in the background. So
like we tried.
What's up?
Like we tried.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll post a picture of what my of what my view was for that podcast on my socials tonight, so you can get a sense of what it looked like there. But it's nice. I mean, just like the fans out that are in the bleachers, there's like not really a whole lot of cover for the media. So I have my hat on, sunscreen, all that stuff, because it's just so hot, and it's just so, just direct sunlight the whole time. And so, and we talked about this. Well, our first go at this too. It's hotter on the field. It really is. Mm-hmm. It's hotter on the field and on that track than it is up in the bleachers. And it's hot in the bleachers too. Don't get me wrong, but that field is just a little bit hotter. Would you agree, Matt, that as somebody, in the case of, say we'll take you for an example. Okay. This is, you're living, you are at SB Nation. This is your job, mm-hmm. but you are an unapologetic Buffalo Bills fan, as am I, and as are a lot of people who are in the media, whether I shouldn't say that because some won't admit it, but whatever. My point is this: would you agree that there's pros, but there's also cons to being a media member when you are a fan of a team, in terms of what you can and can't do, like you said, some restrictions, and just the whole, I feel like there's some pros to not being a credentialed media member, which I'll get to in a second. But do you agree with that? Do you think that there's definitely some pros and some cons? Like, if you're in that press box, and let's say it's not a practice, it's a game, all right? Yeah. And there's 2 minutes left, and Josh Allen is driving down the field, and it's a big 4th and 6 against the Chiefs, and he runs in for the go-ahead touchdown. You're going to have a pretty difficult time as an unapologetic, open Bills fan to not pump that fist, and you're looking around to see if anyone's looking at you, and you're pumping that fist. There's a lot of rules that you got to follow, and you have to lose your fandom, otherwise it's just not going to work. But do you agree with that there's some pros and cons to covering a team in that kind of element? Yeah, and I've had that conversation with plenty of people before. You can't cheer in the press box, or at least you're not supposed to cheer in the press box. Nope. And so maybe it was the Sabres. They had a bloggers box once, or for a while, that like
Blogger Summit.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so like, you could cheer during that particular stuff because they knew it was like mostly like fans and alternative media folks. But like, there are people have asked me that if I wanted to like do full time, like be in the press box, and I like, it just wouldn't be fun for me. I'd get a ticket I'd get to get into the game. It's not a ticket, but like, I'd get to get in the game and watch the games and all that stuff. But like, you can't cheer, you can't like get behind the team. I can't. I have people over sometimes during games, to hang out, and you're obviously not able to do that. And it's just, it loses a lot of what I really like about being a Bills fan if I go cover the game all like, from the press box and stuff. So I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon, unless my job decides that they want to change what my role is. I'm not a Bills beat reporter right now, and I don't think I will be, but I'm a manager right now. So I like manage a whole bunch of different blogs, but I mean, if they wanted me to do that, I guess I would, but it's not like necessarily what I want to be doing on Sundays at 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. or whatever the freaking time the Bills are playing now. So,
well, I'll be honest with you, Matt, and I brought that up because I've kind of, and as it relates to this show specifically, I have struggled with that. At the end of the day, I didn't even apply to try to get a media credential for camp. I thought about it and I've waited, and there's certainly some pros. Having access is a pro. Being able to go somewhere, cover a game or practice for free, is a pro. Parking is a pro, and that's not cheap when in the NFL.
No.
Food, a pro. Let's be honest, too. There's a certain clout that comes with being on that field and having a media pass. There's pros to it for sure. But there's also, again, like right now, I kind of could do and say whatever the hell I want. I could wear a Bills hoodie if I want to. I choose not to. Even on this show, I don't. But I could. I could be very emotionally high or low after a game or a moment that happens, something on or off the field. And I could kind of do it without worry of, what other people in the organization are going to say. Once you kind of become a beat reporter or whatever it is, a radio, TV, whatever, you're media credentialed person, they're keeping tabs on you a little bit more on what you're saying, what you're doing. So there is definitely a con in that regard. I like being able to kind of not have to worry about, well, if I say this and, if I go on a 10-minute Ed Oliver tirade because I'm pissed off about how he played football on that day, I'm not going to get person X from media relations, in my ear chirping at me, or maybe worse because of stuff like that. So I definitely think there's a pro and a con. And even as it pertains just to practice, you're on the field, and don't get me wrong, it's awesome. And I've done it. So I know what it's like to be 5 feet away from Josh Allen when he's doing drills, or Keon Coleman, or whatever you want to go walk around and see. That part is cool. But as we tried to talk about earlier too, it can be a little tough because there's so many players and trainers and coaches and other personnel on that field. It can be tough to get unobstructed views where, you know what, if you're really at practice and you want to see everything that's going on, I love it. Joe Marino, before he used to, because now he's like you, he gets credentials to go. He's a big shot now. But me, him, Joe Miller, we used to go sit up at the very top row of the rafters, and you could see literally everything. You know what I mean? So there's pros and the cons, but today is a big pro for you because, like, I literally couldn't go watch it if I wanted to today, or the average fan couldn't anyway. So you have plenty to offer, and I'm going to start taking advantage of that right now.
There are a couple of the beat reporters that will go up into the press box too at St. John's Victor.
Perino does it all the time. Matt Perino,
it's such a better view, especially for Matt Perino. He's a little guy,
He does. He loves being up in that press box. And I'll tell you what, if I was covering a team, I probably would spend a lot of time as well. Again, there's an element, and I get if you're looking for something specific of being on the field, but I also think there's some cases it's like, hey, I want to be seen, whatever. But when you're up in that press box, you see everything. That top row that I was talking about is like literally right next to the door of the press box. Yeah, I know he's up there a lot. Sal Mariano's up there a lot. Jay Skursky, when he's there a lot. But anyway, like I said, you were actually at practice today. I kind of got some things I want to get to, and these aren't necessarily in order of importance or, all good and then all bad, just kind of some gibberish that I wrote down that I want to get some viewpoints from you on. One of them, in terms of people who did not practice that are new to the list on Monday, it was 3, Teron Johnson, Deion Walker, and Dane Jackson. However, good news is none of those were injury related. Teron Johnson with veteran rest. Deion Walker had an illness. I mean, it's not good, but it's better than an injury. And Dane Jackson was excused for personal reasons. Let's start with the veteran
for the second straight day too. So I don't really know what's like going on with that, but
Dane?
For 2 straight days for Dane. Yeah. Taryn, by the way, full on hype man for the rest of the secondary today. That dude was jumping up and down and slapping helmets like nobody's business.
You could it's kind of, we talk about Joey Bosa having this load management maintenance plan. And isn't it becoming quite apparent to you that Tyron Johnson
Yeah.
they're doing that with him as well, which is something I completely agree with. You know what he is. It's all about him being healthy. So I'm good with him sitting out every third practice. He's got to get into game shape. But aside from that, there's nothing that he's going to learn at training camp that he doesn't already know. You know what I mean? Let's talk about a guy here. And again, these are kind of in random order. Somebody who returned, from what I understand, though, was just at least for individual stuff. But Josh Palmer returned after missing practice yesterday.
Yes.
What did you see from him? Because I'm pretty sure you took a picture of him at some point during practice.
Well, it was nice to see him in the individual drills, and that's what the picture I took was. Like, he looked, really good. I don't remember a ball thrown to him hitting the ground. But I was over watching the defensive lineman for a little bit too. So, no, he looks fluid. I didn't notice anything with, nagging from his injury or anything like that. So I was just glad that he was out there. I didn't see him in any of the teamwork, however, like you pointed out.
And it looked pretty good, though. It looked like he's close to being back to full.
I wouldn't have known that he was out yesterday by the way he was moving today, other than the fact that he wasn't in the teamwork.
He's been getting banged up for a bit of training camp. The first day I was there, which was last Sunday, he didn't end up missing any time, but I saw him shaking his hand, and it's just been more lower body stuff. But I saw him working with trainers and trying to get his arm or his shoulder or something loose. So he's been getting pretty nicked up. But him even just doing individual stuff at this point in camp, I think is good. I want to talk about the wide receiver that, if you're watching this on the video side, I'll put it back up there. He's on the cover of today's thumbnail because I've heard a lot of good things about him. I'm talking about Tyrell Shavers. He had, last Sunday when I was there, an incredibly good, productive practice, but unfortunately he got hurt on the very last play. Ankle, it looked really bad. It got carted off. Fortunately, it just turned out to be an ankle sprain. He's back. I've heard a couple people I saw on Twitter, media people, kind of raving about how he looked today. What did you see from him? And this is a guy, in fact, you know what? You DM me, and I'll share this one DM. You said this. This is a direct quote from you. And it was random because I didn't ask you about him, but you told me with Tyrell Shavers, you said, Tyrell Shavers is back on that business today. That was your DM to me. Explain. What did you see about Tyrell Shavers?
Yeah, so he had a long catch on I think it was a 40 or 50-yard bomb from Josh Allen in the end zone. Allen dropped it in the bucket. He went up and got it. The referee called him out. I think he got both feet down. Whatever. We can argue about that, but he still made the play. It was a really athletic play. Josh came down and was playfully going back and forth with the ref and everything like that, trying to say it was in bounds and all that stuff, but he elevated. It was a great play. And then later in, I think it was the 2-minute drill at the very end of practice, he had another set of really nice catches to score a touchdown. I think that was him that scored. I did tweet out that at one point one of the Bills wide receivers threw a ball at the head of Jordan Hancock. Thad Brown says it was Shavers. I thought it was somebody else. So, I mean, that would be 4 different highlights that he had during today's practice. So he's just been playing his ass off and making it's going to be really difficult to see what they do with that wide receiver room. And it feels like we always say that, I know. But if he's got that athletic ability to go up and get the ball, he's got speed. He's just a guy that, you want to have in your wide receiver room, I think.
I think you said it was Caden Prather, the 7th round rookie. That's from what you saw.
But again, I think because Palmer. Shavers. We're talking about Shavers. Yeah. I just think it was Prather, but it was up against the second and third teams if Hancock was in. So, I don't know. Could be either.
Well, let me ask you this. If we were doing a roster projection show today, all right, you've seen Shavers in the past.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really good start to camp, and he's had an opportunity because of injuries a lot. Curtis Samuel, who still continues to miss days, he is stacking days now, and not in a good way, of course, with the hamstring injury. Palmer has been limited. He's been out some. Elijah Moore has been banged up, and we'll get to him later. Actually, I got a question to ask you about him, but opportunity's been there for Shavers, and he took advantage of it, but then he got hurt. but now he's back and it feels like he's doing it again. If we were to be doing a roster projection show right now, is he on your 53?
It's very close. I think the Bills are going to keep 6 wide receivers, but we've been talking about, the return game as that final, or at least special teams in general, as that final roster spot. So I've been thinking Laviska Shenault is going to make the roster as, kind of a returner, something like that. But I do think that Shavers has outplayed him, and wouldn't surprise me at all to see Shavers in as the 6th wide receiver on this roster.
I feel like if the Bills, and this is as things stand right now, and look, we're about to get into preseason football, and that will be very telling. Shavers, Hamler, Shenault, Virgil, who knows, maybe Gosnell or even Wilkerson or somebody like that. These guys, although some are a lot more on the bubble maybe than others, the least there's going to be opportunity for them to make a statement in actual games against opposition. But right now, as things stand today, I feel like if the Bills were to keep 6 receivers, I think Shavers is a lock to make this football team. The way he's looked, and he also has good, solid special teams value. He's a good special teams player. So that plays to his favor. And I would also, I'm going to tell you, again, this could change because maybe 2 weeks from now, Curtis Samuel's healthy and he's out there doing his thing. But I'm getting these vibes as Curtis Samuel starts the season on IR type vibes right now.
Okay.
Right now, at least, anyway. If they were to even keep 5, I think he's got a legitimate chance to make this team. And I will point out one other thing, Matt, that is different from this year than last. I feel, and I know we tend to value our own players more than maybe around the league they do, but I feel if the Bills were trying to waive Shavers to get him back on the practice squad, I think there is an incredibly reasonable chance that he gets claimed and that he doesn't end up back with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, there's a chance. He's got, obviously the one highlight from the season finale. Was it the season finale? Yeah, it was.
I think it was wasn't it the Jets game, like the second last game? Yeah.
Where he went like 69 yards on one play. So he's got a highlight. He's got good preseason tape. I could see that. But to your point, there's always people are going to start talking about Gosnell real soon in this particular vein. There's always that wide receiver that, people think is never going to get through waivers if they cut him at the end of camp. And then they almost always get through waivers unless Brian Dable Joe Shane are rating your rosters like the Giants have done with Isaiah Hodgins and some of these other guys. So I have a feeling that more often than not, those guys are going to get through waivers and, actually make it through.
One more point, then I want to take a break and we'll get back with some other stuff on the other side as well. Mm-hmm. But you brought up this point, so I got to make sure I give you credit because I'm not going to steal your take. You pointed out that Tyler Bass, who did not practice again on Monday. And by the way, the Bills signed an offensive lineman, Dan Freedy, and his gorgeous locks of hair. And they cut, I can't remember, but they cut a lineman, and then they also cut Cameron Klein, who was only here for a couple days. My math tells me that that's a roster spot that is now open. And with Tyler Bass still not practicing, are you having the expectation at this point that the Bills are going to sign a kicker then the next day or two? If for no other reason than the purpose of, hey, you got a special or you got a preseason game on Saturday.
Right.
We need to kind of, see what our kick coverage team looks like. So you need a kicker, and it ain't going to be Ray Davis who can get the ball to the end zone. And all due respect to my guy, Ray Davis, but there's a pretty good chance that the Bills add a kicker. And I'll also ask you this. Have you noticed, if you were paying attention or anything or had an opportunity to see, how's Tyler Bass looking in terms of is he still, because when I was there last, which was mid last week, he seemed to me like he was walking around really gingerly.
He wasn't even out there last Monday when I was there. And so that was one of the first things I looked for when I came today. He was at the Friday night open practice at Highmark Stadium. He was doing the fake kick. So kicking air instead of actually striking the ball.
Yeah.
So he ran up and fake kicked it. And so I was like, oh, so he's at least on the field today. He's doing at least that level of, athletic stuff. Today he was just walking around. I didn't get a sense of like, he's like in a lot of pain walking around. But like I said, I noticed he was actually out there this time, whereas he wasn't out there a week ago. So maybe he's making progress through that. But yeah, I do think they're going to want to add a kicker just to do kickoffs, unless they're planning on having what's his name, Robbins or whatever, do that in the game.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if they did that. If Bass is not, I mean, if he's out there on Wednesday, next time the Bills practice, and he's good to go, maybe he kicks on Saturday. But if not, I would expect a kicker, because I definitely think they want to have some field goal blocking situations. Like I said, kick coverage situations with a guy who could hopefully, kick it to where he's supposed to. But anyway, take a quick break, come back on the other side, and we got some not so much fun stuff to get to, including a position that's really starting to worry me, a specific injury that should surprise absolutely nobody, and of course, what's going on with James Cook. So we'll be right back. All right, I am back here with Matt Warren from SB Nation, going over Bills practice from Monday, Matt's training camp observations. Again, he was at the facility, witnessing everything on the field firsthand. Appreciate you being on. Appreciate, like I said at the beginning, you being patient with us. Which, by the way, it's funny because I got StreamYard up for the first time in a month, and it's like I'm almost afraid to touch a layout, a screen. I don't want to switch anything up. I just want to get through this show incident-free at this time. Before we kind of turn the page towards some things that I would consider maybe a bit more worrisome, we talked about Shavers. Was there anybody that you saw from camp on Monday that you would say, I'm impressed? This was a very good day. Either side of the football, a unit, a player, whatever it may be. Who caught your eye in a positive manner on Monday?
Sure. I was out watching the defensive line early, and they all looked really explosive. I liked what I saw from everyone from, Daquan Jones to Bosa to Greg Rousseau. Rousseau ran so hard during one of the individual reps that he had to like loop all the way around all of us reporters standing there, because he just got like everybody else like circled back around in front of us, but he went all the way behind us because he was just going so fast. So it was nice. I low-key sad that I didn't get to see Deion Walker. He was the guy I was watching last Monday when the pads came on. I wanted to see him again today, just to see what he was doing. And then Dwayne Carter stepped into that second string one tech role behind Daquan Jones. But really, I just like watching the defensive linemen in training camp, just to see kind of the handwork they're doing, the footwork they're doing. And it was a really nice individual session for them at the beginning of camp today.
All right. Now there's one guy that and again, I wasn't there, but following, some media people and stuff on social media, I think it might've been Dad Brown who pointed this out. Michael Hoyt, a guy who, we have not spoken much about. I'm saying we, meaning you, I, or anybody for that matter, have not talked a whole lot about during camp. Like, he's looked pretty good, but I don't know, maybe it's because we know he's going to miss the first 6 games, but Thad made it a point to say that Michael Hoyt, who's basically playing second team reps, that he's unblockable. He's too good against the backup offensive lineman. He said anytime there was a backup offensive lineman out there, he just ate him up for lunch. You notice anything about Michael Hoyt? This is a guy that, and again, it's kind of easy to forget about him a little bit because you have to forget about him for the first 6 weeks of the season. But everything from what I've seen with my eyes and from what I've been hearing from others whose opinions I put value in, this is a guy that he's flying a little bit under the radar for maybe a few different reasons, but a guy who could be a pretty significant help to this Buffalo Bills front seven.
Yeah, I agree with you that he's flying under the radar. And I do think it's because he's on your 53-man roster projections, you're not putting him on there because he's going to be suspended at the beginning of the year. So I do think that's playing at least part of it. And like you said, he hasn't been running with the first team. He also is a little bit of a man without a position. And so like in individual drills, he's kicking butt. But then when we go out, like he's not running with the first team, like sometimes he's with the second team. So it's just like, that's why when, Thad's like, he's doing a rep against the backup, he looks way too good for that level. And I think they signed him to give him significant snaps. And he's just not going to be like, what quote unquote, like, a starter or first team. And so that's why he's mixing in with those backups. And yeah, he's looked very good. I stood next to him today. He's just a little bit like, I'm still trying to figure out like what position the dude should play, just because like he plays big, but he's quick and like, he's not like long, like athletic long, like, Greg Rousseau or something. So I just don't quite know where to like fit him in. And obviously that's kind of what his brand is. And he's built his reputation on that.
Well, it's interesting because on days where Joey Bosa is did Joey Bosa take part in everything today?
Let's see. I saw him definitely in the individual drills. I don't know if he played team or not. I was watching defensive tackle.
Well, so he does on some days. So when he does, so you have either Bosa or Epinesa. They kind of alternate first team with Rizzo. It kind of depends what kind of mood maybe Bobby Babich and Lance Nielsen are in. But anyway, you got those two guys. And then probably with either Javon Sullivan, who is really starting to look better at camp. And then you got the rookie Landon Jackson. And you do start to wonder, man, like when that suspension is up, if there's injuries, that takes care of itself. But if everybody's healthy on that defensive edge position, it's going to be really interesting to see how they deploy these guys. Somebody's going to be an odd guy out, whether it's being inactive on game day or maybe being active but being lucky to play a tiny handful of snaps. Is it going to be Solomon? Is it going to be Landon Jackson, who's a rookie? Who knows? But it's going to be interesting. But Hoyt, at least it appears like he's doing himself some favors. Who's not doing himself any favors, Matt? And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but is anybody out there surprised that Balin Spector got hurt again? And if there is a surprise, maybe it's that he went 10 practices without getting hurt before. I know that sounds really mean, but let's just call it what it is. I like this guy. He looked pretty damn impressive to me last week when he was out there making some plays. He had an interception a couple of days ago too. He's done some good things, but God, man, your best of, what is it? Your best ability is availability. And he got hurt again. He left. He hurt his calf. I mean, that just came out a short time ago. It was a calf injury, and he left with trainers. This is a problem, his calf, that he has had multiple times before. I mean, do you think that it's possible if he's going to miss more than a couple days, like if this is a Curtis Samuel level hamstring or something, is it possible? You might have seen the last of Balin Spector today. I don't know. I don't think that's all that far-fetched to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, he walked right past me as he was coming off the field, and he was very not happy. It's not like he was like, I don't know, saying stuff or throwing stuff or anything like that, but you could see it on his face that he was very annoyed with what was going on. And he's one of those guys that, I mean, we talk about like Tyler Bass sitting out for a week or Curtis Samuel sitting out, or, any of these like other guys taking veteran rest days. Balin Spector needs to be on the field to make this team. And so for him, he's probably gutting through injuries that other folks that have a more secure roster spot might be sitting out right now. And so you got to give him credit for going out there if he's less than 100%, but it's going to make it hard for him to make the team if, like you said, if he's out for more than a couple days here.
Well, I'll tell you right now, last week, being at 3 straight practices, because Terrell Bernard, who is back, sort of, I asked you about him today.
Yeah,
and
Bernard was there today. He practiced. I'm not sure if he took all of the team snaps at linebacker, but he was definitely out there for most of it. And Dorian Williams was in for the walkthrough stuff. We talked about that last week too. When they went to full walkthrough, helmets off and everything, Dorian Williams was out on the field in the linebacker spots. So, those guys are close, whether they're in or out that day.
Sure. Well, my thing with Bernard being out last week was, I think one of the highlights of training camp last week was a pretty intense, good-looking battle for who's going to be Bernard's primary backup between Balin Spector and Joe Andreessen. And I thought both of them had some moments that they really shined. A couple of mistakes by each. Last week, Joe Andreessen had just a really dumb hit out of bounds that hurt Ty Johnson. Fortunately, it didn't turn out to be a major injury, but I mean, the guy was 4 yards out of bounds. But anyway, Joe Andreessen has done a lot more good things than bad. And I'm like, you know what? I think both these guys are going to make the roster. I don't know who's going to be the primary backup. In fact, I think there was it the scrimmage? There was one practice where Andreessen was playing the mic and Balin Spector was actually playing the Will Milano's spot because Shaq Thompson is also banged up and he's out. So I'm like, I think both these guys are making the roster. Even if they only keep 5, I think after Dorian Williams, these are going to be your 2 primaries. But I'm going to tell you, man, the door is wide open for Shaq Thompson if his injury's not severe and he could get back soon because, again, you could hear the frustration in Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott talking about Balin Spector previously before today about staying healthy, and it's happened yet again. Olafosio, who I thought was absolute toast on this team, maybe he gets back into the mix somehow, but I am really having doubts about Balin Spector. I think this team's going to reach a conclusion that, hey, I like this guy, I like what he brings, but I just cannot trust him.
Yeah, and it's Bobby Babich talked about this today in the secondary because he was asked about who's it, Jordan Hancock, I think it was early. He's going to be asked to play multiple positions, and so it's going to come down to details. And Balin Spector, like that's a path for him to make the roster. That's a path for Joe Andreessen to make the roster and get playing time. Is to cross train at multiple linebacker spots and be available. Not just, I mean, we've already talked about how important special teams is for both of those guys, but learning multiple linebacker positions is going to be important for those guys. And you can't, you can do it with mental reps, but you can only go so far with mental reps.
Right. You just mentioned safety. That was the other spot I wanted to go to.
Right.
Taylor Rapp back, good. Cole Bishop not back, not great.
Not good.
Quad happened last Tuesday. I was right there. In fact, right, literally not next to him, but within 20 feet of where it happened from. And you could see he was walking with discomfort, went to the training room, came back out, but it was a quad. Hasn't practiced since.
Right.
Damar Hamlin starting in his place, which is not a surprise. Damar spoke, you said, after practice as well today. What's your concern right now with Cole Bishop? Let's start there. I got concerns about both starters in terms of their ability to stay healthy. I am starting to really worry about Cole Bishop. Is Cole Bishop one of those Look, there's a lot of talented players who play professional football who don't last very long because they just cannot stay healthy. And I know I'm jumping the gun right now, but my radar is up right now. My antenna is up, I should say, when it comes to Cole Bishop. No disrespect, and I'm not trying to start a new year, new beef with Damar Hamlin. That's not my intention here, but I don't want to go through another year of 17 weeks of Damar Hamlin being my starting free safety. I already know what he is. I know what his ceiling is. I also know what his floor is. But I'm concerned that that's maybe not 17 weeks, but you're going to see a lot more Damar Hamlin than you want because these two safeties get hurt a lot.
Yeah. Bobby Babich was asked about Cole Bishop this morning at the press conference specifically because he had a training camp injury last year and now a training camp injury this year, like two significant things that, are getting in the way of his development. He gave, a pretty even answer as far as like, yeah, we want him on the field, all this other stuff. But like at some point, like these are like some of the most key reps that they're going to get all year. Like during the season, they're not practicing the same way that they're practicing here. And so I'm not worried about his communication, but I am a little bit like wondering if he's going to be in the right spot at the right time if he doesn't get all of those reps during training camp.
Sticking with the position, Jordan Hancock, who's starting to get more run at safety, was playing almost exclusively slot corner through the first week. On Sunday, Cam Lewis was starting with the ones alongside Damar Hamlin when he was with Cole Bishop and Rapp were both out. And again, I'll also go back to Taylor Rapp. I like him, and he only missed one day with the knee, so it was probably more precautionary than anything else, and I completely understand that. You want to play it safe with him. No issue with that. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing out there. I have a lot more confidence in his ability to know what's going on than I do Cole Bishop at this point. But I can't get past, and I won't forget about the fact that the last 2 years the Bills have lost in the playoffs, Taylor Rapp's been hurt for both of them. So pretty big deal. But anyway, I guess my thing is this. So you see Hancock, you see Lewis. what is going on with Derek Forrest? I thought this was going to be a pretty significant, low key, under the radar, good free agent signing. It feels to me right now, at least before we get into the preseason games, Matt, that the writing might be on the wall that if Bishop and Rapp both start the season healthy, you might not see Derek Forrest on this roster because you got Lewis, you got Hancock as that Forrest safety. What's going on with him? And I didn't hear anything about him today either. I was like, man, step up, do something. And I don't know. Is it a lack of opportunity? Is he just not doing anything with the opportunities? I don't know what it is, but Derek Forrest is radio silent for most of this camp.
Yeah. Bobby Babich was asked specifically about him today. And there's lots of times that coaches like heap praise on guys or like, want to keep them from getting down on themselves, whatever it was. And, he just, it felt different when he was talking about Derek Forrest today. It just, it didn't feel like he got any excitement in his voice when he was talking about that guy. So with Jordan Hancock, when he was talking about him, he's like, he's a rookie. He's got a lot to learn, like consistency, like, all this stuff. And then with Forrest, it was just like, he's getting better. Like, it's like, okay, like that, not exactly like a ringing endorsement. It's like, I mean, I can't remember what coach said it. Like, people sometimes get upset when coaches yell at them. And it's like, well, when I stop yelling at you, that's when you should be really worried because that's when I don't give a shit anymore. So
right.
Like, I just, that's kind of, I'm not going to put words into Bobby Babich's mouth or overread what he said about Derek Forrest, but like, it did not sound great.
One other guy I want to talk about in I guess sort of a negative light, but I think he's making the team. Okay, I don't think Derek Forrest is going to have to play his way onto the team now. Yep. I don't think, as things stand today, he's not on the team. This guy, I think, is on the team right now. But Elijah Moore, and let me say this too, without fail, year after year, Joe from Queens, for fans of this show, Joe from Queens, you have not seen him in 3 weeks, and you're not going to see him for another 2 weeks because I cannot do training camp with Joe from Queens because no matter what I bring up, like we're having a conversation about players, how they look, he doesn't give a shit. Training camp means nothing to him. All that stuff, OTAs, mini camp, it means nothing. Every year he talks about there being a darling in the spring who looks like last year was Chase Claypool, and you get to camp and it's like they kind of fade away. And now he's been banged up, but Elijah Moore is not a name that we're hearing an awful lot about at all when it comes to like the Bills' successful plays during these scrimmages. Hell, I'm hearing the name Deion Kane. I watched Deion Kane catch a 65-yard touchdown. He had caught another bomb on practice on Sunday. Wilkerson's making plays. Shavers is making plays. Keon, we hear plenty about every day. Josh Palmer, a little bit when he's been healthy. Elijah Moore has been a very quiet name at training camp. And again, I know he's been leg soreness, so he hasn't really gotten going yet. But I don't know, man. What are you seeing? What are you thinking right now about Elijah Moore? Is this a guy who maybe you start to wonder, is he really going to be what we thought he was going to be in May and June when he was in a t-shirt or jersey and shorts and just looking, blazing all over the field? Where's that guy in training camp as we're near the end almost of public training camp anyway?
Yeah, he had a nice one nice catch today. But you're right. I haven't heard a lot about him over the course of this training camp. And, when we see like a guy like, Tyrell Shavers keep making impressive catch after impressive catch, you have to wonder where Elijah Moore sort of like fits into that. I do think he's going to make the team. But at the same time, like he might be like the guy that's inactive on a game day because he doesn't play special teams. Like if they need that, active extra roster spot for whatever. So yeah, we've talked about him and a lot of those wide receivers as far as like snap percentages and like play, like how many plays are they actually going to get? And nothing's jumped out from Elijah Moore to me that's like, oh, well, they're gonna have to get him on the field for this, that, or the other thing. And so that I think that's where I'm more concerned. Like, well, a lot of these guys we were talking about, like even making the team, but for him, it's like this is where he's going to earn his snap percentages, and injuries notwithstanding. Obviously, Khalil Shakir's down now for at least the rest of training camp, and so he's going to get more run. I mean, when you got guys like KJ Hamler taking first team reps, like, I mean, you're going to see some Elijah Moore there too.
Yeah, I want to be clear too. I do not think Elijah Moore's roster spot's in any real jeopardy. I want to be clear about that. But
Not
yeah,
today.
no, not today. And again, with Curtis Samuel out pretty much
Yeah.
all at camp, I would have said, you know what, man, this is a real chance for Moore to kind of blow past him, because I thought going into camp, Moore and Samuel was going to be an unofficial who's
Yeah.
that wide receiver for battle. And that just simply has not materialized at all. All right, last few minutes here for today. I haven't said anything all show. I wanted to save it for last, but James Cook, again, a hold in for a second straight day. Um, Practice on Sunday, at least he was riding the bike and he was walking around practice. You were there.
Uh-huh.
He made like a brief appearance and then just disappeared for the rest of practice. So, are you hearing anything? Did your gut telling you anything? Because it's one or two things, Matt. He left after a week because either A, they're close to a deal, and neither side's talking about being close, but they're close to a deal, and maybe he doesn't want to get hurt, before they get to the finish line. He's seeing all these injuries going on. Hell, man, you saw what happened to Max Harrison. He could have torn his ACL. That doesn't get lost on players as they're trying to get a new deal. So maybe he's sitting it out while they finish things up, although it did not sound like that with Brandon Bean on WGR this morning. I'll be very clear about that. Or B, did, in your opinion, James Cook show up to camp and say, hey, you know what? Good faith. I'm here. I'm at camp. I'm not going to hold in. I'm going to be a full participant, which he was for the first 8 practices or so. And I thought he looked electric. You and I talked about this. I made a clip last week for TikTok about how good James Cook looked. Mm-hmm. And then he just said, you know what? This is not going anywhere. I'm done. Well, for now, I'm done anyway. But what's your take? What do you make of everything that's going on right now? A lot of people think the timing is very odd. I actually don't. It kind of almost doesn't surprise me that this is happening now. What do you think?
I'll agree with that. Yeah. He walked out today. He walked out, used the porta potty, walked back in. I don't it was just so weird. Cause there was a bunch of media folks over there, taking video of him to show on the news tonight or whatever. And then as soon as he goes to the porta potty, we're like, oh, guess we're not using that. So it was just weird. Cause yesterday he talked to reporters at least a little bit. He was it's business, whatever it was with Katie Fitzgerald. But today didn't say a word, not unusual for him to be a man of few words and not make eye contact, sure. But it was even less so than normal today. So, I wouldn't say it was strange. Again, not a guy of very many words. But to walk out, and immediately turn around and walk back in, it was just very, very odd.
Yeah. And look, I don't think he ain't missing no games. Again, he's made it very clear. He doesn't want to lose money. He's not losing money by holding in. If people are wondering right now, well, he's not practicing, is he getting fined? The answer is no. For people, the casual fans might not know that he's not getting fined. That's why he's doing what he's doing. He will get fined and lose a game check if he don't play. So that's not going to happen. But in terms of not being surprised, I think his objective was, I'm going to show up at camp and I'm going to look good, which he did. We're going to talk about him looking good, which I did, and a lot of us have. And then he's like, all right, well, this is what you're missing. And now I am going to hold in because nothing's getting done. I know you were at camp. Did you get a chance to listen to Brandon Bean on WGR on Monday morning, or at least get the kind of the Cliff Notes version of it?
I got a Cliff Notes version from Brian Galliford, actually. I was texting him this morning from Bill's camp, and it just was kind of I don't know. It was brief. It was just saying it was disappointing. And then Bean came out to practice a little bit later, and he looked like his normal self. So it doesn't look like it's bothering him too much.
No, I agree. Well, I wasn't there for him being out at camp, but he sounded a little taken back. He admitted they did not know that he was going to hold in. He just said all the same things that he's been saying the whole time. It did not sound to me like a deal was close. I'm not going to rule it out because I'm not going to completely just dismiss what Tom Pelissero alluded to the other day, saying from his understanding that they weren't that far apart. So I don't know. Last question, real quick. James, if you were to assign his value, it was up to you. If you were the arbitrator, okay?
Oh.
And the Bills and James Cook went to arbitration and Matt Warren gets to decide his salary. What is James Cook worth to you? Ballpark.
I'm probably in the 10 to $11 million per year range, which is probably higher than I would have said a long time ago. But that places him in the top
I don't know.
The top 10. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
I think he's as valuable as like, David Montgomery. Yeah. And I think that was the number I've been using before, was the 9.1 for David Montgomery, because he also is in a timeshare backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. And so like, I just find it hard to believe that the Bills are going to pay a guy who plays 45% of the snaps, $20 million a year. Like Saquon plays so many snaps, and Alvin Kamara plays so many snaps, and Jonathan Taylor. Like those are the guys that are making 12, 14, $20 million a year. And so I've always been kind of hovering around that 10 million, maybe a little bit more average salary. So, it's plus like then you look at what they pay a guy like Josh Palmer, and it's like what, 9 point something million. It's like, I would think James Cook would want to be paid more than that guy. So there you go.
Well, what's frustrating is you and I have talked for months about James Cook and how this was going to be a story or potentially a story, and then it wasn't. And now it is. So we'll see how it plays out. Buffalo Rumblings has something new going on too as we get out of here today. Tell people about what's going on new at Buffalo Rumblings.
Yeah, by the time this podcast publishes, we're going to have a brand new site design over at buffalorumblings.com. It's really going to emphasize the comment section and interacting with fans. That's how I started at Buffalo Rumblings. I was in the comment section talking about Brian Johnson signing as a potential free agent over the course of like a week or two. It was a long time ago. And then he eventually did not. I think he went to the Lions or the 49ers or whatever. I can't remember. So I started in the comment section, started writing fan posts at Buffalo Rumblings. They eventually asked me to start writing for the front page articles. And then I ended up running the site. And now I'm the supervisor for the site. And so we reward loyalty and folks in the comment section at Buffalo Rumblings. And so we've got a brand new product launching called The Feed, where folks it's kind of like a mixture of our old fan post section with social media stuff and, almost like a Reddit-y type of experience where folks can really have, long conversations if they want about whatever they want to talk about. And so it's not just like the writers at Buffalo Rumblings setting the tone for everything that happens. If you want to, go in depth about Mitch Trubisky, or I saw one of the posts from like, a couple months ago was like Brandon Beane should be fired. Like, I mean, if you want to talk about that, like there is a place for you at Buffalo Rumblings to have that conversation. Now, people might give you grief about it, but there's a place to have that conversation. And so, also like on posts that have a lot of comments, they're going to be featured more, saying it's an active conversation. So if you really want to talk with other Bills fans who are, invested, who are intelligent, coming over to Buffalo Rumblings, we've got full-time moderators. So like, it's just a good place to have a conversation with, let's say, some of the changes happening on other social media platforms recently.
Yes. And I'll tell you too, I'm looking forward to it rolling out, and I'm sure when I have you on each week, we'll start to feature a couple of the comments, and maybe that could lead to some good discussions between you and I. So that'll be fun. Make sure, if you guys aren't doing so already, that you're following Matt on social media. Again, he was at Camp Media Credential today, at Matt Rich Warren, both on Twitter X and also as well as Blue Sky. As for the next few days, I'm actually going to have Michael Bunt on from Trainwreck. Do you want to talk about somebody who's had credentials recently? He's been covering practice, and I'll tell you what, I kind of owe him an apology, and I'm going to do that on the show tomorrow, man. I didn't think much of the work they were doing or why they got credential, but I understand now. They've been crushing it at Trainwreck Sports, Micah specifically. So he's going to be on the show tomorrow. And then I am going to be for sure at training camp, both Wednesday and Thursday, the last 2 days at training camp at St. John's Fisher. So I'll be doing shows afterwards, hopefully in one take instead of 2 or 3, like it seemed to be happening a lot lately. But yeah, so I will be in Rochester. Appreciate you, buddy, man. I really appreciate you on a day today more than others. 3 separate times we've done it. Finally got through though, man. Thank you, dude. All right, guys. Like I said, Mike Bunt from Trainwreck Sports joins me on the show tomorrow.